Well, thank you so much, Josh, for joining me today. Super excited that we finally get to have this conversation. It's been a while, and I think the last time we spoke, you're just expanding into the United States. So I think this is a really good time to chat and catch up on everything. But before we get into what Humanitix is and everything it is now and what it's going to be, talk a little bit about your journey into why you even started Humanitix and what's sort of the path.
Yeah, thanks, Grant, and great to be catching up again. So I started Humanitix with my best friend Adam McCurdy, and we met. We went to the same high school but different years, and then we were at university. We became really good friends, and you can probably tell from my accent for your audience, I'm from Australia. In Australia, when we go to university, we generally live at home with our parents still and work a job and travel with the money we can save, so we don't move out onto campus. And so I did about 2 years of backpacking on a shoestring when I was doing my degree, and about half of that was spent with Adam. And so you get a lot of time exploring, chatting, learning, growing, and we did most of it in low-income countries, like a lot of Asia, around Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, places like this, India, and you really get to see just how lucky you are back home. I mean, Australia's a great country, really privileged to come from there, great healthcare, great education. And so, with that comes a moral duty to give back. And we read a few books. One in particular was Banker to the Bahor by Muhammad Yunus, who founded Grameen Bank. And in case your audience doesn't know him, he found a way to lift millions of people out of poverty by setting up a non-profit bank and giving non-profit loans to them, where the objective wasn't to make a return, it was to help people start businesses in rural parts of really poor countries. And so we read that and we're like, wow, that's cool. Like, I don't want to go back to Sydney and get a job in some company I don't care about and, do that with my time. Like, that's just not exciting. We were idealistic uni students. So we thought we want to do something like what he did, Muhammad Yunus. But $1 loans don't go very far in Sydney. It's not as bad as San Francisco, but it's very expensive.
Right.
And so, we recognized technology was the biggest driver of change in our generation and in our country and, up where we live. And it also makes more money than any other industry. So we thought, could we create a technology charity that disrupts an industry for good? And within that idea, we sat on it for a while. We came up with different experiments. We had lots of funny thoughts. We were going to try and take on Facebook at one point with a social media platform that does good.
Sure.
And we might one day still do that. But we landed on the slightly less ambitious path of, well, as idealistic uni students, we were buying tickets and getting slapped with annoying booking fees that were outrageous. And we thought, who the hell are these ticketing platforms? Everyone hates them. They seem to get away with it. It looks very monopolistic. Fees should come down over time with technology, and ticketing had gone up and up and up, even though you don't get a physical ticket anymore. So we called bullshit, and we, excuse my French, but I'm from Australia.
No, I love it. No, I love it.
Yeah, we decided to do something about it. So we said, let's flip this model on its head, and instead of having, incredibly monopolistic, greedy shareholders, let's have the world's poorest children as our shareholders, and let's build the world's first technology charity, or one of the world's firsts. And so we started doing that. And so that's a long answer to like the light bulb moment, but it wasn't really a moment. It was a 10-year period for us of exploring and searching.
Wow. So when people ask you what Humanitix is, like, how would you explain it to them? I mean, obviously there's sort of comps, right? Like an Eventbrite, right? Or something similar like that. But I guess how would you explain it to somebody who hasn't sort of heard about it yet, right? What's the pitch?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. I mean, one of our main competitors is Eventbrite. So Humanitix is first and foremost a ticketing platform. Event organizers use it to build and manage and promote their events and sell tickets, collect the money, etc. And the big twist with Humanitix, well, there's a few, but the main one is that all our profits fund amazing, predominantly education programs for the world's poorest children. And that comes at no extra cost to the event organizer. In fact, they'll save money because our fees are a lot lower than the for-profit ticketing platforms like Eventbrite, way lower than Ticketmaster. And so it's good business to use us. If you're an event organizer, at least have a look. And if the client themselves are a non-profit or social enterprise, they can actually use our platform at our sustainable cost price, which is, often less than half of the for-profit ticketing platforms. So we've tried to make a no-brainer ticketing platform for people who want to do good, but maybe don't have the money to be donating to charity. So just by changing this platform they use to Humanitix, it creates real tangible good in the world.
How was the startup process for you? Really as a first-time founder, kind of walking into this arena and kind of trying to disrupt a pretty big industry global. I mean, especially here in the United States, and globally, there's just obviously more and more events coming on board. And now with the advent of sort of remote, now we have these virtual sort of events and all that goes into that. But what's the journey been like for you as a startup founder going out and sort of, whether it's raising capital for a nonprofit, right, which is weird, or having like, donors come by. What's that process been like?
Yeah, so there's kind of been three phases to that journey and process. So phase one was like we came up with the idea. We were in our mid to late 20s with, a little bit saved up, but not much. We weren't millionaires. And trying to build a technology company with no shareholders is hard. Firstly, when we were starting, no one would fund it. So it was me and Adam funding it. So we moved back to our parents' place, hunkered down on expenses. I stayed at my job. Adam went full-time first because he has a technology background. And we just had to bootstrap for the first 2 years. And our first few staff were volunteers, idealistic young people who didn't have a family to feed yet, so they could afford to work for free for a bit and move back to their parents' places.
Wow, amazing.
And we got to about 10 of us at working predominantly from Adam's parents' place before we got a break. So we started in 2015, and in 2018 we had a massive break. We won what's called the Google Impact Challenge, which gives $1 million in prize money to the best technology, nonprofit ideas that can change the world. And we'd been giving it a bash. We'd proven it could work. We'd sold millions of dollars in tickets on a very lean household company,
Right.
which was a charity. We'd turned it into a charity, so there wasn't any equity or shareholders. And that changed everything. It allowed us to really beef up our technology team, and it also made us a lot more attractive to other philanthropists, because before that, no one would fund us because they're all like, what the hell is this? A ticketing platform that's a charity? It doesn't make sense. But then, once Google did their due diligence and approved it, then suddenly we were the sexy new thing in philanthropy in Australia. And Atlassian is another tech foundation that was actually
Yep.
came in before Google.
They're
And was kind
an
of
Australian company as well, right?
yeah, listed on the Nasdaq, but started in Sydney, and they're our Microsoft. Is the easiest way to explain it.
They're huge.
But really, really cool company. Yeah, and so that was kind of phase one, the hustle, earn nothing for a few years, which was a massive mental challenge because we're in our late 20s, all our friends are getting mortgages and settling down.
Right.
We're not earning anything. In fact, we're going backwards because we're funding things ourselves. And we're not building any equity or anything we can sell down the track. So there's no sweat equity being built. It's just a passion project so that was a hard patch. Then the second patch was kind of cool. Google's backed us, Atlassian's backed us. We got a good brand in Australia. We're scaling. And then phase two was COVID. We were doubling every 6 months. We'd become self-funding. We were proving this could work. And then our revenue evaporated overnight. And for 18 months, we were just in survival mode, trying to keep the team together because most of the people had joined us in a volunteer capacity. They were like brothers and sisters in arms. We'd been to war with them. And suddenly we were in a position where do we have to let everyone go? We're a ticketing social enterprise and it's COVID. But we as a collective slashed our salaries in line with each other and got through COVID without having to let anyone go. And we gave our clients the best customer service of any ticketing platform in the world because we were the only ticketing platform in the world that didn't fire their sales and account management teams. And so coming out of COVID, and this is what I'd call phase three, the phase we're in now, we're booming. We are 4 times larger in tickets. We sell hundreds of millions of dollars in tickets now across predominantly Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, and the UK. We have offices in Sydney, Denver, Auckland. And the industry is roughly flat compared to where it was pre-COVID. Eventbrite's still down in revenue, and we've grown over 400% because we looked after our people, we looked after our customers, and we didn't make short-term decisions. And so now we're in massive, exciting phase again. But, first stage was a lot of anxiety. Second stage was survival mode and COVID. Now this third phase is definitely the most exciting. And, this year we'll give $3 to $5 million to our education programs, and the fruits of 7 years of hard work are finally starting to pay off.
Wow. So when you get, those wins like Google and like Atlassian, what do they bring to the table when that happens? Obviously the capital from Google is immense. Was it Atlassian? Was that capital as well? Or was it also that's strategic advisement? Was it a little bit more than just capital? Was it them porting all their ongoing events onto Humanitix? What was some of the value add there?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's a lot more than just the capital. But, when you're a startup, capital is king. And I don't want to take away from that. They both gave us a lot of cash.
Sure.
And you need that. You need to hire software developers and build a good product. Otherwise, it stays a cute idea, but no one uses it. And so cash, yes, first and foremost, which is what we really needed at that point. We've got to 10 staff and it just wasn't, you need growth capital. But I'll talk about Atlassian first. They are the coolest company I've ever worked with. They literally give us access to anyone in their company. And so a year ago when we were going to the US, I was chatting to their treasury team about which payment processors and which banks they use in America. And they were giving us all their due diligence, giving us warm introductions. Their cybersecurity team will once a year get together with our CTO and our team of software developers and do a day where they try and hack our platform and penetrate it, and then work with our team to say, hey, here's the area we found that we think you can do better on, type of thing. And so we're getting incredible access to one of the biggest technology companies in the world and any IP and staff we want there, within reason, but they've been absolutely phenomenal. So every month, teams at Humanitix are doing projects with teams at
Wow.
Atlassian, and their foundation is so genuine and good and has such good reach into the company that it's really surprised us. I mean, even when we hired our chief technology officer back in 2017, his final stage interviews were done by senior developers at Atlassian who told us at the end of that process that if you don't hire him, we will. And that gave us the conviction to hire our CTO. So they've been an amazing partner. And people often assume that because we're a nonprofit, our technology will suck, but it's world class. And it's because we've got these big partners who have helped us build it and given us great advice along the way. Google have been good. Obviously, that competition they ran was great for our brand and gave us a massive injection. And they actually give us a really good budget for YouTube and Google AdWords that we don't have to pay them for. And so they're very good on the brand side for us. But we, it's obviously a much bigger company, probably top 5 in the world, I imagine. And it's a bit hard, we can't get access to anyone.
Sure. Anything from them is amazing, and they do a tremendous job with the Google grants and the YouTube grants for nonprofits. If anybody doesn't know what that is, any nonprofit can apply to get, I believe it's $10,000 a month in Google AdWords ads.
US dollars. I don't know if your audiences are all in America. But
they're everywhere, but for them, it's really one of these things that's quite unbelievable that every nonprofit should leverage. So I mean, that alone is huge. And then obviously the add-on capital for winning the prize obviously sets you up for success, right? It just gives you that breathing room and also that optimism and motivation to say, hey, we have 2 pretty monumental companies that believe in what we're doing. It just gives you that obviously that extra boost when you're when you're not making money, when you're living at home, and maybe the peer pressure of society where it's hey, you should be doing this as a job already and have a home and a family already. It's it's so hard to kind of show other people your focus, right? And what you're trying to build over 20 years of your life, right? It's hard for some people to understand that, but when you have a vision, it's hard to turn that off, man. And so it's really great to get that support early on.
Oh yeah, we've had 2 close near dies. The first was in the first 2 years when we just couldn't attract any capital, and then those 2 companies saved us. The second was COVID, and yeah, it's awesome that the vision's alive and now pumping. But the actual cool thing about Google is they didn't fund us because our profits fund education programs. I mean, they like that, but their main angle with Humanitix was actually that we're solving accessibility for people with disabilities at events. And so we're the front end and back end of our platform is the most accessible ticketing platform in the world, particularly for people with vision impairments. And Google's quite interested in accessibility and the tech behind that. And so we have literally legally blind, vision impaired event organizers who build and manage their events on our software and can do it independently and even check people in at their events. And disability groups had been lobbying the for-profit ticketing platforms for years to please make it accessible. Otherwise, social inclusion is a massive issue for people with serious disabilities. And so we found a way through the power of technology to solve that. And or not completely solve it, it's still a challenge, but we're doing our best and we've done a good job, I think.
You mentioned education nonprofits. You guys get back to with your profits. What does that look like? Is that 3, 5 different nonprofits? How do you have you chosen those, and what have those partnerships been like so far as you scale? I'm sure they're very happy to see you guys scale, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll just I appreciate that it's a bit complicated. People don't see tech charities very often, so I'll just step a layer above and just explain. So Humanitix itself is a charity. There's no shareholders, and our pitch to philanthropists 7 years ago was, hey, give us $1 million. We're going to build this ticketing platform that becomes self-funding and then spits out profits to education programs programs. And with your $1 million, we're going to turn it into tens of millions of dollars for the same education programs you'd normally fund. And so it's a much more efficient way to do good in the world. And that was part of the pitch we gave. And so we've actually achieved that in Australia and New Zealand. In America, we're 2 years in and we're on track, but it's not there yet. And so a big part of our project, even though we're a charity, is partnering with other frontline charities who we do the work with for educating the world's poorest children. And so generally in each country we go into, we have a combination of domestic projects and international projects. And so in Australia, for example, long story short, Australia has a really bad history with our Indigenous population. It's still not right today. They're behind on every well-being statistic, whether it's life expectancy, incarceration rates, alcohol and drug abuse, etc., domestic violence. And so in Australia, our domestic projects focus on education programs for Aboriginal children and Torres Strait Islander children in regional areas who don't have access to good schools, but are showing a lot of potential and helping them get, into the high school and then tertiary education potentially for, whether they want to become a nurse or a doctor or whatever that might look like. They're coming from very remote areas which just don't provide those opportunities. And we partner with an Indigenous group in Queensland, which is a region of Australia, to execute on that because you need local partners. And internationally, we focus on literacy programs for young girls in low-income countries, and we do that with a group called Room to Read, and that's through a lot of Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. And in North America, we've partnered with Code.org, which teach computer science to predominantly disadvantaged children, but not exclusively. And they actually train teachers and help advise states on how to
they're great.
Make I'm cool. Yeah, they turn computer science from a bit boring into actually pretty cool. I was in a school in Denver 2 months ago with a bunch of kids dancing after they'd coded a dance class on their software in the hour of code. It's actually like, I was in shock. I'm like, I remember computer labs in my school days, and it was boring, and they've made it fun, which is cool.
I want to talk about growth for a second, and there's a lot of things that go into it, but maybe besides the early stage capital, I mean, you still have to allocate that money correctly, right, in order to get where you want to go and scale how you want to scale. What are maybe the couple things that you attribute to that scale and that growth, let's say over the last 3 years? I mean, obviously, COVID is, you were doubling before COVID happened, and then obviously that's a whirlwind right there. But if we could kind of take COVID out, which is very difficult, but what would you attribute that that early growth to before COVID and maybe now? Are the growth methods similar? Like, what would you say has worked the best?
Yeah, so part of the reason we went after ticketing to Disrupt is because it markets itself. So when I win a 20,000 person, we ticket some major events now. Like, I don't know if you know New Year's Eve around Sydney Harbour, but it's one of the biggest New Year's Eve parties in the world. The city sells 40,000 tickets.
One.
It's all on
Don't you go first?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so everyone around the world sees it. It's amazing how famous it is. But yeah, we ticket that. There's like 40,000 tickets from the city of Sydney, and so we got some big events. Now, when we ticket that, 40,000 people see our brand. Of that 40,000, if half of the percent are event organizers, we're in front of a few hundred event organizers, and so we've grown really quickly. Through the platform becomes viral and markets itself through our clients using it, and so that's been the biggest growth channel for us. Is just you hustle clients onto the platform, give them a good experience, and then through word of mouth and their marketing of their own event, we grow.
And that added on top of Google ad grants and just sort of normal marketing. How big is the team now?
Yeah, we got globally, we got just over 60 people now full time. And then we've got, boards and some service providers that, do some services for us. So like if you were to add that all up, it's more, but on our payroll, roughly just over 60 now.
Wow. Pretty incredible, my man. As we look, to the future and, hopefully there's not another, COVID, or, another sort of immense event like that just completely shuts down, businesses and events in general. What would be success for you? Like, what's the path now? Let's say the next 3 to 5 years. What are you guys talking about as far as growth? And obviously you come to the US and, this part of the world. I guess, what does success look like for you? What are some of the goals that you guys want to hit within the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so, I kind of spoke of Humanitix to date as 3 phases. I kind of look forward in 3 phases. So next 2 to 5 years is we've got to replicate what we've achieved in Australia and New Zealand in the rest of the world, starting with America, because America's half the world's booking fees. So the last 2 years we've been grinding it out of Denver. That's our American headquarters and our 501c3, and it's going really well. If we get this right in America, which so far so good, we should be in 5 years giving $30 million a year to our projects at no extra cost to anyone. And that's what success looks like to our team. Part of that's Canada and the UK and rest of Europe as well. But the America's half the world's booking fees, so it's our focus. That's the 3 to 5 year kind of phase one. Phase two is, if we can do this in ticketing, what else can we do it in? So on a 3 to 10 year view, we want to have other products that solve social problems. So like imagine you had, Humana insurance where you can get your car insurance and all the profits from your car insurance policy go to saving the environment or something cool like that. So that we think there's a lot of disruptable online segments that we can apply this model to. And on like a longer term view, we're really interested in the data for good concept. So, right now, like social media platforms, etc., they just sell our data to whoever will pay. And that's why elections get screwed up. That's why when you go on certain social media platforms, you're advertised toxic things like, I won't go into it, but like we've all seen those ads on different platforms. It's like, oh, why are you spreading this stuff? And they don't get, it's in their interest. Those are the clients that pay. And, as we scale, we get data as well. We've already got over 2 million people on our newsletter. And so how can we use that for good? Because we don't have shareholders we don't have to chase growth at all costs. And so in Australia, for example, there's a blind spot in our policy with early childhood education, where if you're a single mother, you're already at least on metrics, like statistics, you're disadvantaged. And in Australia, if you're most likely a low income earner, and if you earn an income, the government won't subsidize your early childhood education. But if you don't earn an income and you quit your job, they'll subsidize it. And if you're a low income earner, the childcare is so expensive that you're really washing your face if you go to work because all your disposable income goes to child. So who wants to work to put their kid in childcare and have nothing left at the end of that? So people stop working. And then guess what? You haven't worked for 5 years. You're hard to employ again. So boom, you're in a poverty trap. That's not good for the mother. That's not good for the child. And it's really bad for society because now you're paying welfare for the rest of their life. So it's just a bad policy decision all the way around. And so, cool, we've got 2 million people in our newsletter. Why don't we rally them for a campaign about this and fix it? It's stupid. And so that's how we want to experiment with using data for good. Ideas like that. Now, it's not our core focus right now because we've got a lot on our plate, but how cool. That's part of our vision, to have technology charities because technology is not good or bad, it's how we use it. But, if you've got an incentive structure behind that is growth at all costs and faceless shareholders, you're not going to make those decisions. So that's part of the world we're trying to reimagine, where technology is used to solve social problems.
Do you think, I'll end on the last two questions here. Do you think you would be where you're at if it was a for-profit company? And was that the vision all along? Was it to be, hey, we're going to scale a technology as a nonprofit, right? Like, was that always the vision, or did you toy around with being, a typical for-profit company with a lot, all the normal things that go into that?
Yeah, it's a great question. When me and Adam started this, we intended for it to be a nonprofit because from our perspectives, we wanted to earn a decent salary and have a dignified life, but we're not looking to become billionaires, so we didn't. So the only reason we'd make it a for-profit is if we could scale the impact more by making it a for-profit. We're not going to be stubborn and, spite ourselves just to keep it as a non-profit if that means it can't scale because we can't access growth capital, for example. So we always took the view of, whatever maximizes the social impact out of this idea. Maybe we can grow a lot faster and have a lot more. I'd rather half of $1 billion goes to charity than 100% of $1 million.
Okay.
And that's the challenge, and it was an experiment because this has never been done before. So we always said, we'll be pragmatic about what that is because that's why we're doing this. We want to make impact. It's been pretty cool because I don't know what the right answer is there. There's arguments for, we could scale quicker as a for-profit, but there's arguments for we can maximize the impact as a non-profit as long as we can find rational philanthropists to do this join the journey with us. And so far, there's been moments where I've regretted that and moments where I've been grateful for that. There's been moments where it's like, this is so obviously good for the world, but philanthropy is not driven by rational thinking always. And there's, it's not like private markets that are just seeking a return. And so that's almost destroyed us, but it's also made us. I think people are a lot kinder to our organization and we wouldn't have Atlassian staff helping us like they do if we were just a for-profit investment. They really believe in the mission and they appreciate that there's a really good crew of people working at this organization who could be working at the Googles of the world, getting higher pay and more equity,
Totally.
but
Yeah.
are totally aligned with this mission and, want to earn a good living, but not, but have made that choice, and they respect that and they help us more because of that. And so the jury's out, but so far so good. We're scaling, we're winning. We're proving it can be done in this model, and hopefully that will inspire more philanthropists to think outside the box when they next see an idea like this. Because the world of philanthropy is largely broken when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Last question, my man, and it's around technology, because I've really tried to put an emphasis on what tools companies, founders are using to actually run day-to-day operations. So could you share like what the tech stack is at Humanitix as far as like Slack, or using Atlassian products throughout
Yeah, we use actually a lot of Atlassian products.
Yeah, they have a
and they
big
let us
suite.
use them all for free. They're amazing.
Yeah.
We use Jira for software like pipeline and management.
Yep.
We use their service desk for dealing with customer inquiries and automating a lot of that, and just creating the funnel so it's going to the right team to fix the right customer complaint or issue. We use Slack internally for comms. We use HubSpot as our CRM, Google Drive for document storage and all that kind of good stuff. Keeper for password protection, MongoDB and AWS, Twilio.
Yep.
Those are some of the input tools that we use.
What about Canva for design? The fellow awesome
we use Canva for design.
Yes.
Canva have been a good friend to Humanitix. They're not a funder, but we were one of the first companies in the world to integrate their button for our event organizers, so they can natively design things in Humanitix and Canva. And they're a very cool Australian company. But those are kind of the key ones. I mean, while we are a charity, if you walked in and looked at us, we look like a tech company. So all the usual suspects that you'd find in a tech company.
Awesome, my man. Well, congratulations.
Thank you,
on all success so far. I know back when we originally talked, you were in deep grind mode, and I could tell that it was your passion was just unparalleled, and sometimes you just will yourself to win, man. Some people just have a drive, and that's sometimes what you need. Obviously, a good product and good vision is all these founder traits go with it. But just the drive, and honestly, the biggest thing is sacrifice. Like you said, I mean, you guys lived at home, worked on other things, like bootstrapped it. Like there's a lot of sacrifice that go into building massive products that impact the world. And that's part of stuff I don't think that's talked about as often, is the sacrifice that's needed, right? No different than an athlete, right? That what they sacrifice early on to get great at something. And with a company and a startup, I mean, you have to sacrifice so much, as a founding team or some of the early team members, they have to sacrifice so much. So kudos to you and the team, my man. Best of luck for the next 10 years.
Oh, thank you, and I really appreciate those kind words. I think that's it's a great place to be now. We love it. I feel incredibly privileged and grateful to get to do what I do. But there were some dark years in there. I appreciate the sentiment of what you just said. Thank you, and thanks for giving us a shout out. And great to connect again. I'll see you in Denver in a few months.